It is time to talk some football. Hello, welcome back, guys. Today, we're going to be talking Premier League. It's returned for another week of massive action. Of course, loads of different fans in the... I've just realised I've got something on mute. The computer was playing. But anyway, guys, that's a little bit of, teething issues for the stream. How is everybody doing today? Get into the chat. Let me know how you are, how you're feeling. We've got Andreas in the chat. He's a little nervous about Sunday, of course. Arsenal's massive game with Liverpool. That's going to be the second game that we're going to be speaking about today. From a tactical perspective, we're going to dive into the stats, the tactics, and all that good stuff. Radu, welcome as well, my good friend. How are you? A lot has changed in the Premier League over the last week. We have seen managers losing their jobs left, right, and centre. Frank Lampard is back in the dugout as well. All interesting stuff. So I think that's a good place to start. The managerial merry-go-round in the Premier League is in full flow right now. There's been 13 changes of management in the Premier League this season, which is the most in a single season in Premier League history. 3 more than any other season. 13 changes. In terms of teams in the bottom half of the Premier League, only David Moyes and Steve Cooper still have their jobs from clubs in the start of the season. That is absolutely bonkers. When you're looking at the table, the likes of Crystal Palace, Leeds United, Wolves, Everton, Bournemouth, Leicester and Southampton have all made changes this year. It's absolutely crazy. And I think one of the big things that Premier League clubs need to sort out is dealing with setbacks and dealing with a longer-term plan and a longer-term solution. Samson's in the chat as well. Nathan's in the chat. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Radu, all good, Dave. Missing you and your show, really. All good with you? Yeah, really good. Had a little break last week. Went over to Belgium for a few beers, a few lagers. Had a great time. Went to Antwerp, went to Brussels, but now we're back. Obviously, we're going to be every single Friday back until the end of the season, previewing all the action. Of course, we've got the Champions League coming up as well, which is going to be sick. I can't wait for the Champions League quarterfinals. There's some absolute bangers there. But today's topic, of course, is the Premier League. Going back to the kind of managerial chat, of course, Chelsea sacked Graham Potter earlier on in the week after a pretty poor run of fixtures. I think one of the interesting sides with Chelsea is it appears they had absolutely no plan. It appears they sacked Potter and then they didn't really know what to do. And I think that's one of the big things that directors of football, the owners really need to start thinking about in the Premier League. If you get rid of a manager, you've got to have somebody lined up. The league is far too competitive to having assistants or coaches taking the first team, which I think is a real problem for Chelsea. But going forward, of course, Frank Lampard has returned. Lampard did a great job in his first season as Chelsea manager, using a lot of youth players and getting to the Champions League. But that all kind of fell apart in the second season. Lampard's only going to be around for... how many games have Chelsea got to go? So Chelsea have got 9 games left in the Premier League, so 9 games plus the European games, which I think is a big one. Obviously, Real Madrid faced Chelsea in the quarterfinals over 2 legs, with Chelsea having the second leg at home. Lampard has got a big job to do. This Chelsea squad is so bloated. How you manage with all the forwards, all the midfielders, all the defenders, and all the goalkeepers Chelsea have, I do not know, but Lampard's got to step in there. But the big thing with Chelsea, they've spent a hell of a lot of money so far. They sacked Tuchel and paid him compensation of around 13 million. They then paid Brighton a record Premier League fee of £21.5 million for Graham Potter. So far, Chelsea have paid 34.5 million this season on managers who are currently not their permanent manager, and they've also going to have to pay Graham Potter some compensation as well, but it's not been disclosed. Looking at his tenure as manager, I think Graham Potter needed a better squad, needed Chelsea to have a better sort of position in terms of the players that were here and not. Obviously, very difficult to put sessions on with all these players. But finished his Chelsea tenure as manager with only 31.8% win rate in the league, which is the worst rate of any club, worse than Tuchel's 50% from his 6 games at the start of the season. So Chelsea are obviously in a bit of a mess. Lampard to the end of the season, and of course then they are speaking to Julian Nagelsmann, and they are speaking to Luis Enrique in terms of, if I was to suggest a manager for Chelsea. The squad, you need to get rid of the likes of Aubameyang, Ziyech. You probably need to get rid of Pulisic, Sterling in there. You need to go into midfield. You probably need to move on N'Golo Kante, Kovacic. You really need to change this squad if the Julian Nagelsmann signing is going to work. One of the big concerns with Bayern Munich for me was that they didn't move on the old guard. They had signed a manager for a record 25 million euros in Julian Nagelsmann, and then they basically didn't move the team on. And that is the concern with Chelsea. If Chelsea don't move their team on and you still got the older players in the dressing room, that could be a problem from Julian Nagelsmann, but he is a fantastic manager. Talking about other clubs that have lost their managers, of course, we've lost Antonio Conte from the Premier League. He was sacked as Tottenham manager, and Christian Stellini's taken over, playing a very similar style. We saw Tottenham playing that kind of 3-4-3 formation against Everton on Monday, where they should have really come away with 3 points. A Lucas Moura shocking challenge, poor decision, cost them one of their men after Decore got sent off for poking Harry Kane in the face. But Spurs, really, they need to work on who's going to be their next manager. Brendan Rodgers, Graham Potter. You're looking at Maurizio Pochettino going back there. There is a lot of concerns, and I think one of the big ones for all these teams looking for managers, unfortunately, Marcelo Bielsa is set to become Uruguay manager very, very soon. So that is another concern for them there. And of course, Leicester City are in the worst position out of the 3 clubs that sacked managers this season. They have been on an atrocious run of form under Brendan Rodgers, and they were rubbish against Aston Villa after the sacking of Brendan Rodgers. They really need to sort themselves out. They very much could get relegated, which would be an incredible situation considering how good their squad is. Obviously, their squad is in a bit of a weird spot, like Chelsea, like Spurs, with a number of players, leaving in the summer. The likes of Yuri Tielemans is going to go, and Didi's probably going to go. But at the same time, there's enough quality in there with James Maddison, Tete, Daka, Vardy, Iheanacho to really get them through. They've had a massive issue with their defence this season. They fixed that in January, but it's an absolute mess. It is a mess. All the 3 teams that have sacked their managers this week, I just think, what are you doing? What are you doing? And to finish on, before we dive into the Man United versus Everton game, just a quote from Freiburg coach Christian Strolk on the persistent hiring and firing policy in football. Neo-capitalism destroys people. I'll leave you on that, guys. You can interpret that however you want. Jumping back into the chat, Alex is here. Hey, Dave, following you from Senegal, Africa. I do appreciate your tremendous work. I appreciate you too, Alex. We've got Ethan in the chat as well. Big sellout of players. Yeah, look, I think a number of these clubs like Leicester, I think Chelsea, I think Spurs have all got to sell in the summer. They've got to change the mentality with the players they've been there for a bit of time. Spurs, for example. If I'm Spurs, I'm selling Harry Kane. This is the most value you're going to get for Harry Kane. Considering his contract expires in 2024, Man United need to look at him. The likes of Heung-min Son, maybe look at selling him, maybe Lucas Moura, and have a new rebuild in there. You've got Richarlison, Kulusevski, and Dan Juma that would be a brilliant front 3. Spurs need to move the squad on. The likes of Perisic, 34 years old, question marks, whether, with his long-term future, same with Eric Dyer, Ben Davies. There is a lot of work to do with Spurs' squad, like a lot of the teams. Radu, I've got to go in 30 minutes, but leave you with this question. Is Enrique a better fit for Chelsea or for Spurs? That's a really good question. I believe Spurs have had an absolute stinker with picking their managers. Go from really stumbling on goal with Maurizio Pochettino, young manager, pressing football, great style of football, to then looking at the likes of Jose Mourinho, Antonio Conte. What are you doing? If you continued the progression with the style of play, you sign a vertical tiki-taka style manager like a Julian Nagelsmann after Pochettino, you're growing. You're growing over time and you're continuing the style. Going to win at all costs is absolute rubbish. And Daniel Levy is an idiot. And that's another reason why he's just, probably needs to sack himself. In a sense, like you basically broken your football model, like Man United have done, did time and time again post Fergie. Van Gaal, Mourinho, Solskjaer, Moyes, 4 different coaches, 4 completely different styles, and I feel that was Spurs' problem. Now they're in a bit of a rut, they really are. Samson in the chat, watching from Nairobi, Kenya. Welcome to Kenya as well. Good to see we are worldwide. Love everyone going down, but In terms of the question, Luis Enrique, I think he would be really good at Chelsea. I really do. I don't know whether Julian Nagelsmann should go to Chelsea. I've got a bad feeling about the squad at the moment with Chelsea. But I feel like someone with Luis Enrique's experience would be a really good fit. 4-3-3, they've got the squad for it. They've got the attackers for it. You know, Havertz, false nine. Will we finally see the best of Kai Havertz after the amount of big chances this fella misses on a week-by-week basis? I do think looking, long term, I think it would be a better fit for Chelsea than for Spurs. I think Spurs maybe need to go down that young manager route, whereas I think Chelsea need that experience. So I would say Nagelsmann to Spurs, and of course Luis Enrique to Chelsea is how I would say it would fit best. But guys, it is time to talk Manchester United. Man United currently sit 4th in the Premier League, behind Newcastle on goal difference. Both teams have played 28 games, but Newcastle have the advantage. The good news for Manchester United is there's a bit of separation from themselves and Spurs in 5th. The big thing, though, you look at the season, Manchester United really gained some momentum in the mid part of the season. They played some fantastic football following the Arsenal defeat, where they, beat the likes of Barcelona over 2 legs in the Europa League. Beat the Newcastle United in the cup final. And then we had the Liverpool game, which really set United back, in my opinion, really set them back in a sense of the form, the fluidity of the side was very, very good. And then that freak result that, one of the stats that I gave after this game, if you were to Monte Carlo predict this game over and over again, it was 0.01% chance that Liverpool would have taken the chances and scored 7 with the XG that they had, which was absolutely crazy. But at the same time, United have struggled. I thought the reaction was very good against Real Betis. Bruno Fernandes in that deep midfield position that we're coming to see him play more and more and more. One of his best games for Manchester United. Goal and assist, 5 chances created, 97 touches of the football. But then United have struggled since then. I thought they were poor against Southampton, poor against Betis. Before the 2 red cards against Fulham, you could argue they were poor there. Awful last week. And against Brentford, I think they sort of got themselves through that game. They really hung on at the end. But you kind of go back to early part in the season, maybe the Southampton game. If you guys remember that was off the back of Man United surprise 2-1 win over Liverpool. And then the game against Southampton where they kind of just won the match. It wasn't a great game of football. It was a very good goal United constructed, but overall United were quite poor. Saying that, it was a really pivotal result that kind of put United on the right path. And I do feel that the Brentford game felt a little bit like that, where United needed the result. Casemiro's not back, Eriksen's not back, but United needed to win that game of football, and they did. Not the best play that we've seen Man United play this season under Erik Ten Hag, but a performance that was needed. I thought Scott McTominay was excellent at the base of midfield. I went to Old Trafford for the game on Wednesday, and I thought Scott just bossed the show at defensive midfield, put in some really good challenges, won 5 out of his 7 ground duels in the game. But it had to destroy Brentford in the right areas, and I thought that was very, very important for the victory. I also thought Diogo Dalot played very well on the right-hand side, completed 92% of his passes, 2 out of his 3 tackles, one interception in there, 1 chance created in the game. I thought he played really well. So those 2 players obviously have been building their form and fitness, but of course Lisandro Martinez with a standout performance once again, 5 out of his 6 tackles won in the game, more than any other player on the pitch. But I didn't think it was a great performance, if that makes sense. They just got the job done. But it was a needed performance. Jumping back into the chat, Ethan in the chat, Ethan Stilo, is United too heavily dependent on Casemiro as their defensive midfielder as a 6 for their system to operate successfully? So 100% United are far too reliant on Casemiro. The issue United have got, I was just playing around with some tactical stuff pre-stream. The issue United have got is that without Casemiro, they don't have a number 6. And it's as simple as that. Scott McTominay is more of an 8 profile. Fred's more of an 8 profile. Bruno Fernandes is not a 6. You'd say there's just nobody in the squad. I'd like to see Sabitzer play there, but Erik Ten Hag seems to prefer Sabitzer playing a little bit higher up the pitch. So if we kind of move United to what we may expect from the weekend. Antony on the left-hand side, Rashford into defensive midfield, Martial high, Sabitzer sitting in that high position, and then Scott McTominay at the base of midfield. Other things, obviously, Luke Shaw was off injured at half-time. I thought he had another poor game. I thought Luke Shaw was really poor against Brentford after a very, very poor performance against Newcastle. My issue with Luke Shaw is the consistency. It's just not there. And to sign him on another 4-year deal for, probably upwards of 250 grand a week for me is poor business. I want to see more of Tyrell Malacia towards the end of the season. I thought one of the big things that he brought Man United when he came on with speed in possession. I think at times Luke Shaw is far too slow with the ball. He's too slow in the final third. When he's getting into those advanced areas, those times against Newcastle where he could have slid the left winger in. That, of course, was... Who was the left winger that started against Brentford? That was Jadon Sancho. Moments where he could have been a little bit quicker and he was too slow. And that's my concern with Luke Shaw. His brain isn't snappy. What I like about Tyrell Malacia is his brain is snappy. There were 2 or 3 moves. One of the ones that led to a really good chance just before half-time just simply came from Malacia playing super fast, pass that broke the lines into Bruno. Bruno linked with Rashford. United got down the other end and created a really good opportunity. I like the speed that Malacia plays with. Yes, there's times he played a very poor square pass in the second half that he needs to cut out of his game. But I like his speed. I like his tactical awareness. I also like his passing. I want to see more of him towards the back end of the season. Give him an opportunity to play a run of games. And I think that's a big thing with players is getting him in there. I think one of the big issues United have had recently is their lack of command in defensive midfield. I think at times there is literally nobody that drops into that area. And when United build, let's say Rafa Varane has the ball, literally nobody that's dropping into that position. And it does go down to profile. That's not Scott McTominay's game. It's not Bruno Fernandes's game. But what United should be doing is dropping one of their fullbacks into that midfield zone, a la Manchester City or Arsenal. That's what they should be doing. They should be building with this kind of, this 2 base out of the back at the moment because Casemiro's not there. When Casemiro's there, it's absolutely fine to have a soul-holding defensive midfielder because Casemiro will play that position, will recycle the play, will destroy. But without Casemiro, United need to be a little bit smarter and playing one of the fullbacks narrow, really important. And I would say having one of the fullbacks playing consistently there, not having it positional where one of the fullbacks tucks if the ball's on the left-hand side and if the ball's on the right-hand side, the other fullback tuck. No, what I'm saying right now is having Malacia playing central midfield for the majority of the game to control that central area. How many times have we seen over the last sort of month with Arsenal dominating the ball with Zinchenko or John Stones dominating the ball for Manchester City? We'll come on to the Arsenal game against Liverpool as the stream moves through. But a big thing is that fullback in that narrow position. United need to do it from the start. More control in defensive midfield, more ball playing option, and allow United to play through much better. Anyway, moving on to the actual game United have got against Everton. Early kickoff in the Premier League, United-Everton. So in terms of the selection of players, obviously we mentioned Tyrell Malacia coming in at left-back. I think the number 9 position is also a big one. United's strikers this season, Anthony Martial and Weghorst, have only scored 8 goals between them. And one of the concerns I've got with United at the moment is if Marcus Rashford doesn't put the ball in the back of the net, United seem to really struggle. When you're looking at goal scorers in the Premier League, Rashford's on 15. The next is Bruno Fernandes on 5. When you look at, let's say, off the top of my head, let's look at Arsenal. They've got a great blend of goal scorers. Martinelli with 13, Saka with 12, Odegaard with 10, Trossard with 8. Obviously, majority of those scored for Brighton. But then Gabriel Jesus 7. Xhaka, even Granit Xhaka is on 5. Bruno Fernandes scored the same amount of goals as Granit Xhaka. No disrespect to Granit Xhaka, but Bruno Fernandes is a much better box player than Granit Xhaka. United need to improve their creativity, but also their goal scoring. And I think, look, back end of the season, obviously Weghorst has been really good defensively. Weghorst is kind of the big game striker. You play him, his work rate's going to be good. His physicality causes people problem. But against teams like Everton, Anthony Martial through the middle is an absolute must for me. And I am so frustrated with this season. So frustrated. It's been rubbish. You look at Martial and you think, perfect for Erik Ten Hag. But if you don't play, don't play. And there's nothing we can really do. And D asks, do you think Rashford's form this season, particularly post-World Cup, is sustainable? Leaning on him a lot. I think United are leaning on him massively. And players like Anthony Martial need to step up and score. Same with Anthony. Same with Sabitzer. Same with Bruno Fernandes. Like Arsenal, it should be the front 5 players should be responsible for the goals. Not one player, but 5 players. And that is so, so important. And I feel like with Anthony Martial, back end of the season, his quality really needs to be utilised, because without him, United are going to struggle. Dave, what do you think about Neto as a keeper for United? I'd probably go David Raya, Diogo Costa as the 2 signings. I'd bring 2 goalkeepers in the summer if I was in charge, but I'm not. Radu, do you think Brentford was subpar, or did we nullify them? I think Brentford played quite well, but I thought Leandro was fantastic. I thought Scott McTominay was fantastic defensively. Thought we dealt with them well from set pieces as well, which I was really happy about. But going back to the point, obviously Manchester United and chance creation has been a big problem. Anthony Martial has to come in. One of the big reasons why Anthony Martial directly involved in 11 goals in 15 performances for Manchester United against Everton in all competitions. 7 goals and 4 assists, which is his most goal involvements against any opponent for United. He has to start in that attacking position. I think the other side of that is obviously United haven't scored in 3 of the last 4 Premier League games, which is our big problem. Without Rashford, there is an issue. Martial's got to be fit. You're looking at Weghorst, made 9 appearances in the league this season, only 2 fewer than Martial, and has played 113 more minutes despite being only signed in January. That is a massive problem. Weghorst has only provided 1 assist and is yet to score in the Premier League. Martial this season has 5 goals plus assists in 10 appearances, averaging a goal or assist every 97 minutes. And you're looking at Marcus Rashford is the only forward that's got more goals and assists than Martial. There is a big, big problem with Martial not being fit, but hopefully United can change that. And I think one of the big things with Everton in this match, in terms of how those guys are going to line up in the game, I think you'll be, for Sean Dyche, his improvements with Everton have been massive. It will be 4-5-1. Probably Damari Gray, through the middle. Dwight McNeil, Iwobi on the flanks. Garner Gay or Nana. And probably Tom Davies coming into that central midfield area following the red card. That kind of, cost them the potential to get points in the game against Spurs. So let's just quickly arrange the team. We've got Davies in that central midfield area, number 26. The other option, obviously, would be playing, someone like Mopé up front, but probably not. So, the big thing with Everton and how they've defended is very much 4-5-1. And I think one of the issues that we've seen teams when they play Everton is they just sit super, super deep. In a 4-5-1, they defend very, very well in that area. One of the big things that they did well against Arsenal's obviously biggest strength this season has been their wide play. The likes of Saka and Martinelli. What Everton did supremely well against their wide players was double up on them. Double up on the likes of Rashford and Coleman. And then very much, if they've been bypassed, let's say Anthony beats them both in the dribble, midfielder comes over and deals with it. Great tactics. It caused Arsenal a lot of problems with their build-up. The solutions that I gave Arsenal during that day was very much underlapping 8s. And that's something that United need to really do with Bruno Fernandes and Sabitzer in the final third. We need to see those underlaps. We need to see those balls in behind the defence on both sides. That's going to be crucial. I think we also need to see the false 9 operating in between the lines and getting on the ball and combining. One of the things that, Martial does quite well is link with Marcus Rashford. So we could see at times Bruno maybe playing more in that false 9 position, Martial drifting wide. With Tyrell Malacia as support, you then get to a situation where you've got 3 bodies out wide. Which could open up that space for Bruno to slip in, or even Marcel Sabitzer to slip into that 9 position. I think that's going to be crucial. Control is massively important. And why I said Malacia deep in that central midfield position, United building with a back 3, is to massively overload Everton's, structure in a sense of Demarai Gray's probably going to pick up the centre halves on the ball. He'll press up high. Davies and Onana will jump onto McTominay, which will and should leave a bit of a 2v1 out wide. The other solution to this Everton problem that Arsenal could have looked at a little bit more was playing one of the wide players narrow, maybe Anthony, and using Diogo Dalot on the overlap to cause issues. Again, now we've got a problem here where, in fact, if Martial's drifted over, you've got a bit of a 4-on-3 situation if you're drawing them out deep. And that's a big thing United need to do. Coax Everton onto them and allow United to play through into bridge. It's all about positional play in this game, all about getting on the ball. But I think one of the other issues one of the other solutions United could have in this game is potentially building in a 3-3-4 system. So Bruno Fernandes still playing a little bit deeper in the game with Scott McTominay, which should have that same kind of concern for Everton as if United are kind of building with their 3-3. How do you press them? How do you really press the ball players at the back? How do you successfully press the midfield? Again, if you're going to draw Iwobi into that midfield battle on this left-hand side, that means Sir Marcus Rashford has got a 1v1 with Tarkowski and Coman. If United can work the ball, through with some combination play and then get it to Rashford. So I do think this 3-3 build-up could be quite good with United, the back three, the three midfielders, with Bruno playing a little bit deeper, or alternatively, which would be also quite good, Bruno high, McTominay inside and Sabitzer playing deep, getting on the ball. That maybe is an even better solution for Manchester United. But United just need to be better on the ball than they have been. But talking Bruno, maybe if Bruno's in that deep position, his progressive passes have been absolutely fantastic. He's completed more passes into the final third than any other Man United player this season. And the stats in the last game for Bruno Fernandes against Brentford were very, very good from a progression and a sort of ball-playing perspective. Let's jump over to SofaScore and have a look at his numbers. Heat map, very, very good. As you can see, very involved deep in the kind of Toni Kroos left half space. But the 114 touches of the ball, 83 passes completed. He completed the most passes with 30 in the final third as well. 3 chances created, 6 crosses in the game. He's a perfect player to play in this 8 role. If we have a look at the average positions, he's sort of deeper than Luke Shaw. And I think that's something that United maybe need to work on, is Sabitzer maybe drawing to that left-hand side, from a tactical perspective, flipping it back on its head. Bruno deep position, but very much Malacia in an inverted role. I think that is super important for this match. Could see United play through and penetrate Everton in a really good way, as we can see with the average positions against Brentford. Bruno a little bit deeper on the ball, recycling it, getting it forward. I think it's going to be vitally important. Jumping back into the stream. Who's got a better midfield? Liverpool, Arsenal. Arsenal, James, by an absolute mile. How do you think Sean Dyche will try and stop or put a system to stop Rashford? That's the interesting one. I think Martial definitely has to start this match for United, but in terms of how he'll stop Rashford, should I say, out wide, we'll be doubling up. It'll be Iwobi and Coleman, or Iwobi and Dwight McNeil. They switch Coleman and Dwight McNeil up against Rashford. That's how they'll try and deal with it. 2v1 plus the midfielder, which again, United should be able to play through nice and fast in there. But that's how Sean Dyche will do that. Trossard, best January signings. Zinchenko's been the signing of the season. I wouldn't disagree with either of those shouts. Should we take Gravenberch from Bayern? Absolutely. Gravenberch would be brilliant for United. United should absolutely be doing that. Get him in a relatively cheap deal. Mahad, if Bruno is deep, we need McTominay to make late runs into the box. Alternatively, McTominay holding and Sabitzer making those runs into the box. But yeah, I kind of agree. Could be, McTominay from deep playing through. The only issue I think with that is I feel like you've got to have McTominay a little bit deeper, because Everton have got some powerful ball carriers. If Decore wasn't suspended, I'd be even more worried. But Onana is a very, very sort of powerful ball carrier, could drive through the sort of centre of the pitch. Who's the key player for United during this game? I think it's going to be Anthony Martial. I think getting Martial on the ball, getting him the combination playing between the lines, vitally, vitally important. Martial won't start. He's not match fit enough, according to Erik Ten Hag. If that's the case, then, I'd probably go Jadon Sancho wide left, Rashford through the middle. I thought Rashford played really well in the second half in that 9 position. I thought he grew into the game, which was quite nice. But yeah, in a sense of Bruno Fernandes in a deeper role, ball recoveries, he made the most on the pitch against Everton with 10, which I think could be quite good. United have won 38 Premier League games against Everton, the second highest they've won against one side. Man United versus Tottenham, 39 wins is the highest one. Sean Dyche won up 2-0 at Old Trafford against United with Burnley in January 2020. He could become the first English manager to win away against the Red Devils in the Premier League with 2 different clubs. Interesting stuff for this game. Guys, there have been my thoughts. Get your score predictions in right now. Red, it is really a good Friday when you catch a Statman Dave stream. Red, welcome to the chat. Get your score predictions in for Man United versus Everton in the Premier League. United really should go here, and again, United should be beating them. They really should be pulling away. This is where United need to start getting that attacking momentum built together, start winning games of football, playing well, and all that stuff. In terms of fantasy football this week, current team right on screen right now. Pope, Gabriel, Shaw, Trips, Rashford, Saka, Son, Martinelli, Watkins, Tony, Kane, Mitoma on the bench, and I might bring in Perisic for Luke Shaw. So, yeah, lots of movement in fantasy football. But we aren't talking about fantasy football. We are talking about real football. Any more United questions, get into the chat. But let's move on to the massive game in the Premier League, Liverpool versus Arsenal. This is going to be absolutely massive. Humongous game for the title race. I really believe that Arsenal should be beating Liverpool comfortably in this game. And that being said, Liverpool have got a great record at Anfield against Arsenal. When we're looking at the statistics in the match, Liverpool have won each of their last 6 home games in the Premier League against Arsenal, scoring at least 3 times in each game, 22 goals in 6 games. But I generally think Arsenal are massive favourites here. Liverpool have been awful recently. Arsenal look to complete their first league double over Liverpool since the 29-10 campaign. I think one of the big things with Arsenal is that tactically they are a side that have got a lot of quality about them. And I do believe they've got the answers to the Liverpool issue. So it's an interesting one. Let's get the teams on screen. Whether Liverpool will play 4-3-3 or they'll play 4-4-2 will be yet to be seen. In terms of the tactical side of things, we saw them play a bit of a 4-4-2 against Manchester City and get completely overrun at the base of midfield. And I do believe Arsenal have got exactly the same qualities. I kind of think it will go back to the 4-3-3 for this game, though, with Henderson, Elliott, Fabinho, Trent back in at right back. Arsenal, of course, have been in great form with Gabriel Jesus in there. Saka missed last week with a illness, but should be back into the starting 11. Zinchenko, Ben White at the fullback, and of course we've got to switch out Tomiyasu to Rob Holding. And I think one of the concerns for Liverpool has been their ability to control games. As we mentioned, they actually played a 4-4-2 or a 4-2-3-1 last week against Manchester City. And the humongous issue was, of course, the rotation in midfield. We know that Arsenal do this when they're building. Xhaka moves high, Odegaard shifts across, and Zinchenko moves. This is completely the wrong strategy for me that Liverpool took. The issue is they've basically got a 4v2 in midfield. That is a humongous problem. And that caused them massive amounts of issues. City, of course, do a similar thing. They had John Stones inverting in the game. Arsenal will do the same. So let's take a look from a tactical perspective why this is a big problem. So Liverpool's 4-4-2 shape we can see on screen. The defence with Robertson a little bit too deep. The midfield with Fabinho a little bit too high. And the front two putting pressure on the centre-backs, the back three of City. Arsenal building exactly the same way. Back three. Midfield 2, front 5. Obviously, with Arsenal, it's Zinchenko moving in from left back, not John Stones moving in from right back. The issue that you've got straight away is the 2-3-8s. You know, Arsenal play 2-3-8s with Xhaka and Odegaard. Behind the midfield line, how are you supposed to control them? You need to be much better positionally. I'd also say you probably got to drop Cody Gakpo onto the DM. Liverpool didn't do this, which creates a massive problem. You know, a simple pass out wide creates a humongous issue. 2v1 on Andy Robertson as Diogo Jota goes to press high on the centre-back. Same thing could happen with Arsenal. Jota pressing high on Ben White. Got a problem here where Odegaard can shift over. Saka and Odegaard against Andy Robertson, 2v1. Similar situation. Humongous space in behind Liverpool's defence. A 4v3 on their back line. Cutting inside, very important for Saka to do that. This onto a stronger left foot. Drive into the centre. Link through Granit Xhaka. Switch it to the other side in Martinelli. Cut back across. Humongous, hole in the defence. Again, you've got problems with, Konate getting drawn into Gundogan, and then Trent getting pulled out. Massive space in the box. Simple goal. The reason why I bring Arsenal into this, they scored a very similar goal in the 4-2 win over Chelsea in a recent Premier League game. With Saka, the ball progressing to Saka. Similar thing if we look at Riyad Mahrez receiving out wide. Very similar tactical situation to that. Saka 1v1 with the fullback, cutting inside, linking through a number 10, this time with Odegaard. Creating a situation where there's an overload far side of the pitch. This, of course, is a Smith Rowe early shot. That is the tactical situation that Arsenal are going to exploit. Simple as that. As we sort of saw there, building with that back three. Simple ball out to Ben White. Coaxing the winger out. Henderson getting picked up by Partey. Fabinho being in a high position. One of the points Gary Neville made on Monday Night Football, which I really liked, was he mentioned that Carlos Queiroz trained United in a similar way. United 2007-8 Champions League run, where United one of the best counter-attacking teams on the planet. Very much the instruction when defending in this 4-4-2 shape against Barcelona, one of the best possession teams of all time, was having one of your defensive midfielders, centre midfielders, at DM. Liverpool simply didn't do that, which created that massive problem. And that's the issue. When the ball goes out, and Jota presses Ben White, Odegaard's pulled over, Xhaka's in number 10. Simple progression either to Odegaard or to Saka to play through. The issue is that Fabinho is high. If Fabinho is deep and low, you're a little bit better in that moment. You've still got a problem because if, Odegaard is the one that's progressed to, then the pressure comes. You could then link with Saka. Saka cuts inside. Then Xhaka's free from that moment. So there is a massive opportunity for Arsenal to really batter Liverpool in this. I think if they play a 4-3-3, I think they'll still have similar issues. To be quite honest, I think with, you've then got, that tactical situation we said there with Odegaard being progressed to. Fabinho's got to go over and close him down. You've then got Elliott picking up Granit Xhaka, which I think is still a massive mismatch. You've also pulled over the defence. You've drawn the centre-backs out. You've still got a massive problem where Saka could cut in, link through Xhaka, and you've got a 1v1 with Trent Alexander-Arnold. And when you look at the statistics, in terms of Arsenal, they create a hell of a lot through dribbles and carries, which is a problem that Trent Alexander-Arnold's had this season. Trent's been dribbled past 19 times in the Premier League this season, has 2 errors that lead to shots. That's been a massive concern. And when you look at shot-creating actions, Saka has got the most for Arsenal, which is more than anyone in the Premier League. And that is a situation where Saka's going to be a concern, but also Martinelli on the dribble, humongous concern, running straight at Trent Alexander-Arnold. I genuinely, Arsenal fans in the chat, I can't see anything but an Arsenal win here. I really can't. And that is a massive sort of concern for Liverpool in the last few weeks. It's just tactically, there's a humongous reason why I think Arsenal are going to batter them. Positionally, tactically, form-wise. It's kind of over. But guys, they're my thoughts of the game. Do get into the chat what you think, score predictions, and all that good stuff. Just jumping back in the chat. What's my prediction for the score? I think United 3-1 win. We've got other scores coming in from the Man United game. M3 is going to go 3-1 United. Mahad's going to go 2-0 United. Other questions, throwing Trossard into the mix. How do you think, what do you think the best front three for Arsenal is? I think the best front three is Jesus, Saka, Martinelli. And yes, Trossard's been brilliant. Absolutely fantastic for Arsenal this year. He's been one of the best players in March. 5 assists, 5 big chances created. Leads the Premier League in both of those statistics, plus expected assists. But this is not a game for him. I think when you look at Gabriel Jesus and his record versus Liverpool, it's one of the best in his career. You think in the last 2 games he's been directly involved in 4 goals. It's you definitely go with Jesus here. You really do. Go Jesus through the middle, flanked by Saka and Martinelli. You need the wide wingers. in Saka and Martinelli to take on the Liverpool fullbacks, and you need that false 9 in Gabriel Jesus and the intensity here. M3's going 5-1 Arsenal. Red saying Trent on Martinelli having Trent on toast. D-Life is saying Martinelli cooked Trent last year, and I think Arsenal will win the league, Jack Webber, and I think they will beat Liverpool at Anfield. Any other statistics that we've got here? Salah's been directly involved in 105 goals in the Premier League and 105 Premier League appearances at Anfield. He's definitely going to be a threat, directly involved in 7 goals in his last 5 appearances for Arsenal. But I think he might score, but Arsenal win the game for me. I mentioned tactically why and all that good stuff. Guys, great stream today. I, in fact, have got to run. I've got to get a train to London via Sheffield, because for some reason the world breaks on Good Friday. But guys, have a great weekend. Spend some time with your family. Give them a hug. Give them a high five. And have all that good stuff. We'll be back next Friday for more Premier League action. Back on Monday as well with the Premier League review. Stay tuned to that. But thanks for everyone that stopped by today. Big GGs in the chat. Arsenal are going to batter Liverpool this weekend. You heard it here first. Tactically, Liverpool are going to get opened up with the possession of the football. And it's going to be as simple as that. But guys, thanks for stopping today. And we will be back very, very soon on the Statman Dave Clips channel. Subscribe if you're new. Like the goddamn video. And we will see